Hello and welcome everyone to 55 and 5. It's Ian and Cary once again. We have our producer AJ manning the camera. Cary, we had undoubtedly the biggest star in the set yesterday. That was a lot of fun talking about Gorgeous George.
It was a pop icon whose name still resonates today.
You know, televisions were very expensive, and you only got 2 channels, maybe 3, depending on the market you lived in. It was a huge upfront investment, but the fact that Gorgeous George was so popular and so must-see for years. I mean, he was popular from the launch of the LA networks to the Dumont networks, through the crash of television wrestling, back up to when regional wrestling was getting back on its feet on television. I mean, this guy, for all intents and purposes, lasted 3 eras. Incredible. And
if you're watching this and this episode right now and you missed last night's, the influence he had on the biggest names in the world, Muhammad Ali, Elvis Presley, who am I leaving out?
James Brown, Bob Dylan. I mean, just...
Oh, yeah, we forgot... I left you off the hook with Bob Dylan.
Yeah, he mouthed to him something along the lines of you make the movement or you make it fly. I'll get the exact quote.
Okay.
But there was an interaction they had where he winked at Bob Dylan and essentially said enough to him.
We'll go into it on detail on Last Stop Penn Station.
There you go. That's a hell of a place to drop it. So this week, or tonight rather, we are bringing you a former NWA World Champion. Now, this man held the National Wrestling, I want to make sure I get this right, National Wrestling Association Championship. So this was the Schism, or one of the schisms.
Here we go, the Schism.
The Schism is back. Not a very flattering picture of one of the more well-admired wrestlers of his time. This would be the equivalent if I went swimming and you caught me at a bad angle. Cary, 5-minute history lesson. Yeah, right? I bet you know the name, but it is Bill Longson. I'm going to look at the timer here. You got 5 minutes on the clock. What can you tell us, if anything, about Bill Longson?
I know it. His nickname was Wild Bill Longson.
Yep.
I know he was a title holder. I guess it was pre-NWA.
And it got weaved back into the NWA. So it was the National Wrestling Association. There's a great book by Tim Hornbaker that goes through the entire lineage of the National Wrestling Alliance and how they got to what we know now, what Billy Corgan's organization is. Bill Longson held the National Wrestling Association Championship, which splintered off and then comes back in to the lineage of the title.
Why they would use this picture?
Right. The least flattering picture of a man that's really well liked. If you read about him, the consistent thread, not only was he a wrestler, but he was also a promoter in Louisville, very well respected. You hear the name come up a lot. People seem to really like Bill Longson. He must have rubbed somebody in Toronto the wrong way or somebody in Montreal the wrong way.
Am I safe to say his career was sort of over by the late 50s?
Yeah, 35 to 60
was
his career. Again, 3-time National Wrestling Association champion. Interesting to note, he was a villain, but he was one that fans kind of got behind. So one of the earlier kind of cool bad guys of his day. And he retired due to having broken hips because he was trying to ride a wild horse. So hell of a way to go out.
Maybe that's where he got the Wild Bill name.
Right. Yeah, so he was a Louisville and St. Louis mainstay. Wrestled a lot for Tom Pax and Sam Muchnick.
I'm sure if Jim Cornette would be able to chip in a ton of stuff on this. And
absolutely.
Certainly Tim Hornbecker, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, and the 3 title wins came against some names you'd know, Sandor Sabo, Bobby Manigoff, and Luthez. And so interesting with Bill Longson, not as many people talk about the World War II era. There's sort of a glut in wrestling as, you know, people rightfully focus on the war. Even Buddy Rogers was part of a unit, not that went overseas, but here domestically in the U.S. Bill Longson was one of the biggest stars during the quote-unquote World War II era. So about 10 years, 15 years before this card came out, he was a pretty big deal. And he'd go on again. He had a lot of influence in Louisville. Was the booker there. But I mean, a well-respected guy. And it's really this photo. They got his bald spot and his expanding waistline. Again, this would be like if you took me and and put all my wonderful credentials, then put me shirtless sideways with an emphasis on my bald spot. But Bill Longson, a great competitor. And it even actually says on the back that he is a fan favorite. I mean, he's interesting. They kind of break the fourth wall on the back of the card.
How's that?
They say he's a, quote, meanie that's beloved by the fans.
All right.
So that holds up in the research. And do you have any idea what move he's credited as inventing? And there's many people who claim they invented this move, but
even though he's not a cowboy, I'm going to take a wild stab with the bulldog headlock.
That's a good guess.
Or I'm going to guess where you put the scissor lock on the head of your
flying
leg.
head scissor takeover?
Yes.
Yeah. No, it was, he gets credit for the pile driver. So
really?
Hans Schmidt, there's a couple people that generally get credit for the pile driver. He's among that group as inventing the pile driver. So there you have it. Former three-time NWA world champion. Not a name that's around much anymore. He's kind of like Frank Sexton. You know, we talked about him, who's a big-time draw in Boston. Just kind of faded away. It's a shame.
I think that he's got more of a legacy, you know, with the true historians.
Absolutely.
You know, but thanks for bringing him up tonight, showing his card, and teaching me a little more.
Yeah.
And just knowing that he had the name Wild.
Well, maybe we could petition. Maybe we do a re-release of the set. We'll contact the estates and get poor Bill a better photo. I mean, they couldn't have picked, especially a guy. And this is what I'm talking about with these cards. If a brief aside here, they don't mention that he's a three-time champion. They don't care on any of these. They said Steve Staley debuted at age 13, essentially.
Right, and the guy who is the ghost is beautifully posed. And poor Wild Bill with his belly hanging out.
Big time champion, big time attraction. He's got the overflow. He's got the bald spot. Again, this is if you put current me on this card.
No, it looks like me after the Super Bowl loss.
Well, Bill Longson, we hail you. We hail you tonight. Maybe Jim will chime in. That'd be fun.
I'd love that.
That'd be great. So we want to thank our producer, AJ, from Bisson Creative Web Design. Thank Cary for giving us some knowledge about Wild Bill. I actually didn't have that in my notes, so thank you. So that's something I didn't have. And I'm Ian Riccaboni. Tomorrow is the last for the week, and we're going to be talking about the Babe. Do we finally have a woman? Or is this Babe Ruth? Or who is it? Hopefully it's not another ghost. I got some notes. It is not. So we're going to be talking about Babe tomorrow, and we hope you join us 8 p.m. every weekday until we get through the set going live on YouTube. So thanks so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.